Welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Carrie Siggins, and today is an advice from a CEO episode. And we're going to talk about how to become a high impact leader. So, if you're listening to this podcast, I have to assume that you are interested in leadership and developing yourself as a leader. But a lot of times it's confusing. What do you really need to do to be a high impact leader? There's so many things, and it can be overwhelming. And the things that we do or we don't do can even be self sabotaging on our leadership journey. So, I wanted to highlight 4 areas in which I think if you focus on and really hone these skills, then you can become a more impactful leader, a high impact leader. So, the first one is developing other leaders. Now, this might seem a little counterintuitive because it's not about what you're working on yourself, but it is the number one thing that all leaders need to do. You are never going to be a good leader if you do not know how to develop people and get the very best out of them, help them grow personally and professionally. Leadership development is where it's at. If you can develop people, you can build a strong team, then you will be far more successful in life. So, this takes intention, working closely with your direct reports or high potential leaders within the organization to develop career development plans, to give them uh, useful feedback, even if it is critical, to push people, to give them new initiatives and new tasks to work on, to stretch them a little bit, to increase their competency zone instead of push them outside their comfort zone. I like that term a little bit better. It's really important. So, you should be spending a significant amount of your time developing your people. And I would say I spend about 25 to 30% of my time working with people in my company to really help them hone their own leadership management skills. The second one is you have to embody your company's values and principles, even if they don't serve you in the moment, not in your self interest in the moment. And this is really important because what you don't want is your list of values and principles to just be a poster on the wall that nobody cares about, or people roll their eyes, or people don't read or don't understand, or even worse, just say, yeah, that's great that those are our values, but that's not actually how we operate as a company. And as a leader, it's up to you to really exhibit those values, even if it doesn't serve you in the moment. So, for example, if you have a value that is integrity, right? And maybe you don't want to get in front of your team and tell them that you made a mistake. Or maybe you want to, I don't know, maybe just, yeah, tell a little bit of a white lie. They don't really need to know exactly what's going on. These are self serving activities and they don't align with your values. If a company's value is integrity, then you as a leader, you need to always show up with honesty, with transparency, even if it hurts, even if it stings, even if it reflects poorly on you, you must do that. If one of your values is flexibility, and as a leader, you don't want to give someone on your team flexibility because it's going to perhaps, I don't know, reflect poorly on you because you may miss a deadline. But this is something that's really important to your employee. You need to be able to figure out how to exhibit flexibility, even if you want to be very rigid in it. So you have to model that, even if it's not in your self interest. So this is a tough one. You have to walk the walk. You cannot just talk the talk. You have to model those values, even if they're not necessarily fully in alignment with your own. That is a responsibility of leadership. All right, number 3. You have to know the difference between leading versus doing. And this is a really important one, especially for newer leaders, newer managers to understand. And it's something that I struggled with as I grew from a director into executive leadership, where I ran so much of the company and my fingers were in everything, to where I really had to let that go. And great managers aren't in their doing. Great leaders aren't in their doing. They're inspiring, motivating, ensuring there's alignment, giving feedback course correction, and keeping a generally high level view of the organization and what the team needs to achieve. But if you're in there doing the work, then you're not working on the most important things that you need to be doing as a leader, nor are you allowing other people to really step up and take on those tasks. So, what I do and how I encourage my team to think about this, if I am going to take on something, I ask, should I be doing this? Should I be managing this? Or should I be leading through this? And if the answer is managing or leading through it, then you need to delegate that task. You need to ensure that somebody understands what the expectation is so that task can be done. You shouldn't be doing. If the answer is I should be leading this, but instead I'm managing it, well, that then gives you a different clue, right? Managing is setting priorities and making sure everybody's following a schedule. Leading is about inspiring, it's about saying, here's the outcome that I want. Now you can go figure out how we get there. I trust you enough to figure out how to get there. So there's a very big difference between doing, managing, and leading. And as a leader, you need to understand what the difference is so that you can make sure that you are setting proper expectations, getting everyone in alignment, properly resourcing your initiatives, making sure that you're not spending time in the weeds doing when you need to be managing or leading. And then finally, it's this is a self-awareness piece. You really need to understand the emotional impact that you have. Leaders should be emotionally impactful. Every word that you say, every facial expression that you make has an emotional impact on somebody. And with this comes great responsibility. You can't make a flippant comment because someone might take it the wrong way. And while it's nice to say, well, people just accept me for who I am, that's great, but not if you want to be a high impact leader. You really need to think about the emotional impact that you set on your team and for the organization. So I always try to show up with positivity, with a can-do attitude, with transparency, with honesty. I explain the why. All of those things I know will leave people feeling like they are in the loop, in the know, like they understand, maybe inspired to go do big things with me. If I show up in a bad mood or come across as condescending or aggressive, or maybe I've got something else going on in my life that has nothing to do with work, and I don't show up as my fully present, joyful, positive self, people are reading into that and I have a different emotional impact on them. And so that's a really important aspect that you have to think about. So those are the four things that I think that all leaders need to think about: developing other leaders, embodying the values of the company, even if it doesn't serve your self-interest in the moment, figuring out leading versus doing, leading, managing versus doing, and then understanding your emotional impact on your team and in the company. So hopefully that just gives you some insight, some things that you can be working on just from a leadership perspective. That's what high impact leaders do. Okay, question of the week. Question of the week comes from actually one of my podcast guests, and he was really nervous about coming on the show. I'm terrible in front of a camera, which I totally get. I always used to feel that way too. Oh my gosh, I was like a robot on camera. And he asked me, "How do you get so good at so many things?" And I said, first, like, I am not good at very many things, only a few things. Uh, but what I am good at, the reason why I'm good at them is because I practice. Practice makes progress. Not practice makes perfect. Practice makes progress. If you want to be good at something, you have to practice. You have to do it. So I was always awkward in front of a camera. I can get on stage and give speeches, but as soon as I'm in front of a camera, it was like I turned into this very monotonous robot. And with all the practice that I've been doing with my podcast and doing with these shows, working with a speech coach, I'm so much more comfortable in front of a camera. So just practice, practice, practice. It's not like it was automatically just easy for me to do. I certainly felt awkward and uncomfortable and not like myself, but over time, you get better with it. Same thing with giving speeches, same thing with giving presentations, with figuring out an engineering problem or a finance problem or figuring out leadership. Like it comes from trial and error. It comes from doing the work. It comes from practice. And that's how you will get good at things. And that's why you need to pick not a whole bunch of things you want to be great at. Pick a few. It's called skill stacking. I'm actually going to talk about that in a different episode, a future episode about how you can create a very unique value proposition, not by being the expert at one thing, but by taking a couple of different things that you're good at and using them together to really create a unique value proposition, a unique brand, and a unique value that you bring to the world. So that's what I would say. Practice, 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 practice. If you want to be good at something, you just have to do it more, just like sports, just like anything in life. Practice, practice, practice. Okay, that is it for this week's episode of Reflect Forward. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like this podcast, write a review, subscribe to it, share it with a friend. It always helps with the algorithms, and I am forever grateful. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.